In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at ways to generate material maps. The first thing I'm doing is using a gravel search on Google Images. I always search for seamless or tileable. I use tools to make sure that I'm looking at large images. So this is a 2K resolution file, 2048 by 2048. And then I can go ahead and download this file, which I've done, and it's now on my desktop. I'm going to use a demo version of Crazy Bump. Crazy Bump will help us make the displacement, normal, and specular maps based off of this single image. So to do that, I'm going to click this, open a photograph file, and open my gravel file. It thinks about it for a second. It kind of gives me two options, one with displacement kind of inverted. So here we see a dark patch where things are pushed down. That's the inverse is here, the white patch, things are pulled up. This one looks fine to me, so I'll start here. And we can see that here on the sphere, our gravel's been projected on. I'm going to change this and move to a box, something with flat surfaces, because I know I'll be working with flat. Using left click, I can move this box around. With right click, I can move the light, and then I can tile the texture by middle clicking and dragging it. I can zoom in and see we have, a really good representation, but maybe it's a little too strong. Under my options, I'm making sure that my diffuse texture's on, specular, parallax displacement, ambient occlusion, and color lights. We can turn all of these on, and we'll have those controls here. So first thing I'm going to do is lessen my normal map, something maybe half as much, 25 or so. Gives it a little less kind of crispness. Because these are round pebbles, that makes sense for me. I'm going to remove some of the noise. I'm going to increase the fine details and very fine details, decrease the medium details, and really decrease the very large details. Hoping that we'll be able to get some pebbles pushing out, but we really can smooth this out. It is a gravel bed. On the displacement, I can control the depth of the displacement, so we can actually push these things back in. I can enhance details. I can soften those edges so that we can actually get the roundness of the rock. The occlusion here, this is just an added layer that will help build depth. Specular, this is something that I can control, how much or how little specular enhanced detail we want. And I think already this is looking pretty good. The last part here with our diffuse is we can remove shadows and highlights. Say you took some pictures and there are some shadows. This little variables here will try to remove them and get an even lighting across the surface. So with that, I can go ahead and go to Save. I'm going to save all textures, and then on my desktop in my gravel layer, I'm going to save everything as a JPEG here. Save. Alright, and what's exported are these files here. So this is the color, the displacement, normal, occlusion, and specular maps. These are what we'll be using in Unreal Engine. So let's jump over to Unreal. I'm going to go to my master material file. I'm going to right-click my master material and create a new material instance. This is going to be my gravel material. My gravel material is going to move into my materials folder and out of my master material folder. So I'll drag it onto my materials, move here, jump over there, and then I can edit this single gravel material. I'll be using all of these options. We actually didn't make a roughness map, but that's okay, we won't need it. On my content, I'm going to go to my textures, and I'm going to bring in all of that gravel. Put this here. Really, I should probably make a folder within my textures folder just for the gravel. So let's do that. We'll move all of these files into gravel and move them. And then it's as easy as populating our material instance with these different objects. So let's put this in here, our displacement map into displacement, normal into normal, occlusion into the cavity, and well, let's try the roughness here, that's fine. And this needs to be, let's see, that's just a plane. Here we are. So this is the remade material in Unreal Engine. You can see that there's a little bit of hint of displacement, but not too much. So here we can come in and control some of our variables and increase the cavity, which will give it some added depth and shadow. Our displacement mount is half, but you can see if we start pushing this, it starts moving in very strange ways, right? We don't have enough triangulation within this mesh to get us what we're looking for. So just a little displacement is all we're going to use. The normal amount we can increase or decrease to help add some added depth. It's not going to do too much because our normal is very, very minimal. So with that, let's see if we can control. We don't have anything in the specular, but we can add a little bit of highlight to it. And there we go. So we've been able to move from the single JPEG on the internet to something that is fairly realistic. This is going to be underwater, but we can recreate that texture here. So what we can do is then come in this water. I'm going to go ahead and hide it for right now. And down here at the bottom of this pond, if I go back to my content, to materials, I can drag and drop gravel. Let's see, is this the wrong side of the material? Or maybe my scale is really, really tight. Let's go to unlit here. There we go. So I've changed my view here from a lit model to an unlit model. What I'm guessing is happening is that water above it is completely opaque, so obviously we're not going to see the gravel underneath it. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can use water in these scenes. So for both here and for this back pool back here, I can go ahead and turn this water off, and I can drag and drop my gravel material here. More and more, I'm finding that I'm using Quixel and Megascans to generate kind of the 3D assets I need for my visualization and VR environments. If you haven't ever seen Megascans before, it's absolutely a fantastic collection of 3D assets, materials, and decals. I've already downloaded this one, the decorative gravel, and we're going to use this here with all of the maps that are available. So here, if we look at our download settings, I've downloaded everything in a 2K resolution. Quixel isn't free. There are some assets that are free. There's quite a few, but you're able to come in and look at a great number of things. You can sign up with a subscription, and every month you're allotted a handful of items that you can download. If you need more than that, you can obviously buy more. Once I have this, I can jump back over to Unreal and bring these textures from Quixel in. So here are all the files I downloaded from Megascans, and in Unreal I've created a Quixel gravel folder in my textures. So let's open that, and then we can drag and drop, say, all of these down into this folder. It'll take a second because they're large-scale maps, and it's importing quite a few of them. It imports the normal as a normal, and that makes sense. Let's jump back to our master material folder, create a new material instance, and we'll call this QGravel for Quixel gravel. Move this over into our materials. Move here. In our materials, we'll edit our Quixel gravel. We'll come back to our Quixel gravel, and we're going to turn on all of these maps. And then we can just plug these in. We have our ambient occlusion, which is cavity. We actually do have a cavity map here, so I'll use that one. Our displacement map is here. We have our normal map, and we have our roughness map. If I wanted to add additional maps in, we could use specular and bump. And what you can see here is it's fairly flat, but the resolution, I think the image itself is really, really great. So let's play with the cavity power and see if we can get a little bit additional crenulation on there. That looks pretty nice. Our normal amount we can increase or decrease. There, we can get some fake highlights on there. Displacement amount, as we increase this, you can see the rocks move in, again, a very strange way. It's just we don't have the resolution. If we look here under a wireframe, there's not enough triangulation or tessellation for us to get really smooth, but that's okay. So we'll go unlit. I'm going to turn my displacement down to say something like 2.25. Our roughness amount we can increase. That'll make it less glossy. And there we go. Let's replace our gravel that we have in our scene right now with the Quixel gravel. So I'll go to my materials, and I'll drag and drop Quixel gravel, and you can see there it is. And you can see that our texture is fairly flat. And the reason for that is that our mesh actually just doesn't have enough facets for us to control the tessellation and the displacement amount. By jumping back to Rhino, we can actually improve that and increase the number of triangles we're importing through Datasmith. So here, if I go to my wireframe, you can see I have much more tessellation. And there are two steps to make this happen. First, in my Rhino model, I can come back in and re-click any of my surfaces and use the rebuild command. If I rebuild this, previously it was just 2 points by 2 points. It's just the corners of a rectangle. I've increased it to 90 by 90, and you can see I have a much denser wireframe. Simply by doing that, saving and re-importing, which we can do right now, save as. This is the textured model as a Rhino 5 file, save. That'll take a second. Then we'll jump over into Unreal. I can re-import my Datasmith package. And just by bringing this in, you can see that it will update the mesh files that are brought through. The second part is this. On this, we have our Quixel Gravel. That Quixel Gravel is using a master material, which is our solid master material. And within this, I've set my tessellation multiplier to be now a parameter we can edit. It's a kind of an extension of our master material. This tessellation amount right now, if we look here at our wireframe, you can see there's a sphere that's set with a tessellation of 0.25. If I set it down to 0.1, it's much less tessellation. If I set it to 5, well, 5 seems to break it. This is just the default amount, but we can control how much tessellation happens in our objects. So close that. We're not going to save this because it is working. Here, if we look at this in unlit right now, the cube, we can control that displacement to a greater degree. Even better here, when we get to our actual base, you can see now that the rocks actually are moving. There's a strange warp to them, and even here in the background when they slide through the wall, they're bigger than they need to be, and that's great. If I come back in and we edit this one last time, let's just slide this down and we can see it happening real time here. Go unlit. We can really increase our displacement. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to move in strange ways, but I'm much happier, and that's just because we didn't have enough mesh faces coming in from Rhino. So with that, there's our new gravel. I will do the same thing for this system over here, and in our next tutorial we'll take a look at water.